So it is a big day in Washington, D.C. When the tax bill gets introduced, while it's not the final step, it is a huge step. So starting today in about an hour, we're going to see the Ways and Means Committee take this bill up, address amendments, ultimately pass out, hopefully sometime late tomorrow. And it's a big step. So the president should be pleased here. Certainly his priorities, as you pointed out, making so much of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent, preserving and improving upon the middle class tax cuts, keeping that small business deduction, the first time we've ever created that, 2017, and expanding it some, I think very important as well. His priorities, as you pointed out, about $300 billion in tax relief on tips and overtime for Social Security, and some help on car loans for American-made autos. All, I think, big priorities for him as well. Certainly, to your point, the spending savings number is still up in the air, going to be a big part of this. The SALT number is still up in the air as well. I'm confident they will find a common ground here, but I would just point out in 2017, only 8 counties in all of America had an average SALT deduction of more than $30,000. Today, it's gotten somewhat bigger, but the point being, you are devoting about $300 billion or so to a relatively few number of counties, to a few number of taxpayers. And obviously for both the president and tax writers, they're trying to juggle that against the numbers, the cap they have on deficits here, and also the fact that what they're doing in middle class families and small businesses, all that's hugely expensive. So yeah, there is a lot more conversations to be had, both as it goes to the floor next week as scheduled, and then through the Senate. Still a lot of work left to be done.
Well, and when we consider the price tag of all of this, the Ways and Means Committee had a $4.5 trillion cap essentially to the revenue that could be lost over the next decade as a result of this policy. And the Joint Committee on Taxation says it actually is only going to result in $3.7 trillion in lost revenue. And I wonder if you see that as by design, that they purposefully left themselves some margin to work with on some of these issues.
I think so, and for 3 reasons. They don't know yet what that spending number is going to be at the end of the day when it goes to the Senate. That's, Kayleigh, so key, because it's not only the key to passing the bill, it's to unlocking the Senate baseline, which allows tax writers to make more of these tax cuts permanent. So savings number is really big here. Again, they haven't finished out the SALT issue. They're very aggressive in the House on the Inflation Reduction Act. So as that moves through to the floor and through the Senate, there may be some changes there. So I think it was wise for them. And obviously for the fiscal conservatives, this is an effort to bring them into the fold here. So I think it was, they were using some good strategy and good thinking in introducing this bill.
I also wonder, as we consider our audience here on Bloomberg TV and radio, how you think the corporate community should be looking at this package as a whole, knowing there was a lot of conversation around sea salt in particular. Sea, not like sea salt, like SEA salt, but like corporate state and local tax deduction. I feel like for some reason I have to make that clear, Mr. Chairman, but the sea salt conversation, the question around whether or not they would try to close the carried interest loophole, which they did not. Is this actually the best kind of package corporate America could have hoped for, short of bringing down substantially the corporate tax rate itself?
Yeah, so I think to your point, yes. I think for corporations, large or small, keeping that corporate rate as it is, not making permanent, but fully restoring those 3 tax provisions, so key to innovation and competitiveness, like research and development, in full and immediate expensing. I think 5 years is what was in the bill. I think people would love to make that permanent, but that's a big step by itself. In the international tax space, which is where we made sure in 2017 our U.S. companies could compete and win anywhere in the world, including here at home. And when they succeeded bringing those profits and investment back to the United States, the tax writers avoided any tax hikes there, and I think sent a strong signal to our foreign competitors that their global tax is not going to impact our pro-growth tax areas. So from that standpoint, I think it was very strong. Certainly, there aren't corporate SALT restrictions in there, which would have would have effectively been a backdoor approach on the corporate rate and increase there. I think there's satisfaction there as well. I think there's concern on the pass-through side, restrictions on their ability to work around the SALT cap. I think everyone's trying to digest who's impacted by that and to what degree. Certainly conservative heard raised today, but again, tax writers are trying to find that balance, and there will be changes made in this bill as it goes forward.
Well, and obviously we'll learn more, hopefully, about what changes will look like after this markup concludes, however long that takes. I've been told it could go well into the night tonight in Ways and Means, Mr. Chairman. But of course, it's not just Ways and Means that is marking things up today. The House Energy and Commerce Committee is as well. In fact, that starts sooner at 2 p.m. Eastern time. They've saved, according to the Congressional Budget Office, more than the $880 billion in cost savings that they were charged with. But as a result, according to the CBO, 13.7 million people could be kicked off Medicaid rolls over the next decade. We've heard from Republican Senator Josh Hawley, who says this is morally wrong, politically suicidal for Republicans. And I wonder how you yourself, from the outside now looking in, view this politically for Republicans as they consider their maps in 2026.
So I will tell you from my experience with Congressional Budget Office in 2017 on healthcare, their estimates of who is kicked off or kept on our healthcare programs is usually woefully wrong and off by millions. And in this case, I am skeptical about their conclusion. So if you look at what the reforms for Medicaid are, so who might lose their coverage? Those who are ineligible to be covered by Medicaid, those who are here undocumented and should not be eligible for Medicaid, able-bodied Americans, mainly men, who are capable of working or going to school or volunteering 20 hours a week. Certainly, if they want to stay on Medicaid, they can take those steps to do that. And then those who are impacted perhaps by reforms to the payment system. As you know, the way we fund Medicaid, it doesn't go to where people are at. It goes where matching funds are at. States have gained that to a pretty large degree. So if you look at the real reforms in Medicaid, it's hard to agree with that number of 13 million. And frankly, a number of those individuals, frankly, aren't eligible for Medicaid in the first place.
Okay, so perhaps you don't think this will be quite as politically suicidal as Senator Hawley is characterizing, if indeed the people affected are not as high in number. But I do wonder, it's not just Senator Hawley. There were a number of moderates who were concerned about this as well. Add those moderates to the people in the SALT caucus who are willing to die on the hill of the SALT cap with the fiscal conservatives in the House, the likes of Chip Roy, for example, who are saying spending cuts are not going far enough. As it stands right now, do you see the votes as being there on the House floor, knowing you expect this legislation to change, but just how hard with this narrow majority is it going to be to pass even changed legislation with all of these various factions who want different outcomes?
Well, ultimately, yes, I do believe it'll pass the House and ultimately the Senate, and I think it'll be done by that August 1st timetable for the debt ceiling issue. But will it be difficult at every step? Absolutely. It was in 2017. It will be now, especially with such a near zero majority. But everyone knows this. Everyone's staying at the table. The speaker, the committee leaders, the leadership, constant meetings with lawmakers, just as we did in 2017. And so, yeah, there are difficult challenges left. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm confident they'll get where they need to be on time.